Hello, everyone. Anthea Durand here. Welcome to my podcast, Ancestral Wisdom and Evolution. Welcome to episode 6 of Ancestral Wisdom and Evolution podcast. I'm really pleased to introduce Kira Zhigalina. Kira is an award-winning artist turned entrepreneur. Her artistic intention is to create expanding and emotionally connecting experiences for her audience and clients. This manifested in her amazing project, Symbiosis, that visualized breathing into light. Welcome, Kira.
Thank you.
So to start off, please can you tell me about your spiritual journey that led you to be the artist that you are today?
I was also interested in connected to Eastern philosophies and have met my teacher when I was about 15. And there are a lot of practices within Tibetan Buddhism, also connected to visualizations or breath. Also, I was particularly interested in this states, the hypnagogic states, which is the state kind of between being awake and falling asleep. There's a lot of practices as well around visualizations in that space, or practices for lucid dreaming. So perhaps I was already in this kind of more activated state of mind before I had this my spiritual experience. It wasn't necessarily related exactly to more of a Buddhist experience of some sort, or it was, I would say, as I found out later and sort of correlated the ideas, something around non-duality. So actually something that's beyond the definition of space or experiences. And that was in Italy on a holiday with my godmother when I was 16, and I was just trying to fall asleep, and I couldn't really go to sleep. And I was in this state, in hypnagogic state between. I was already been an artist and exploring art as a practice since I was 14, 15. That particular experience, I think that inspired most of my artwork through connecting to internal states, and the artistic practice in itself is really about visualizing or externalizing the internal state. So that's, at least I think that's how it can be defined as. And this particular experience was me falling asleep, not really falling asleep, but trying to fall asleep in this hypnagogic state. And I decided to connect to my breath and connecting to just breathing in and out through following the breath through my body. And as I was doing it, I started feeling this incredible expansion and simultaneous contraction, and this incredible brightness and dense darkness. And I was also, my emotions where I was crying and laughing at the same time, and it was this expansive state of everything and nothing. Later I always perceive it as something of a state of non-duality when you're experiencing all these dualities in one and experiencing everything as this contraction and expansion, which is really what breath is. And breath is this life force that follows everything. That breath is everything. Everything that's alive breathes in some kind of way, and it's this primal force of life. That's why they call it, I guess, pranayama. So it's a force of life. I didn't necessarily start exploring. I have been interested in breath work. So there's also breathwork practices in Tibetan Buddhism, which is kind of more kumbhaka and kind of breath retentions. And it always fascinates me how this tool that we all have and how it can take you to completely different dimensions and experiences through just connecting to something we do every day. And I know also there's other practices of breathwork which is actually have replaced LSD therapy, to the extent to get people to kind of this transcendental psychedelic states just purely through breath. It's not exactly what I'm focused on. So actually, a lot of these practices as well, they often overstimulate your your kind of experience. That's why you start can process trauma, but also just connecting to the breath. And there's really such a variety now of beautiful breathwork practices to kind of tune into. There's biodynamic breath work where you connect to your breath somatically and you kind of move and you really feel through your breath how your body holds all this emotion and trauma and memory, and just connecting to it just purely through breath. So breath is quite amazing. I think particularly in the context of art practice, if you want me to continue talking about that, and I think that experience was particularly inspiring for just focusing on this idea of externalizing this internal state, because ultimately I experienced that there was no really delineation in between, but somehow in the physical form we have this separation. So how can you create experiences for people to feel again, to kind of how connected to this kind of thermal sort of ether space in a sense through I've explored it in my art practice through different mediums. At first I was particularly interested in sound and then video, film. So because it's just thinking about how can I immerse the viewer in different senses and create this kind of surreal sort of dreamlike worlds which they can be part of, and kind of experience some kind of elevation through separating from the physical form into this sort of abstract space of archetypes or symbols or imagery, or how can you kind of trigger certain sensations in the viewer in what they see or what they experience in order to kind of create this non-separation between the viewer and the perceived object. In that case, not really an object, but as a 4D video experiences, for example. And I've worked a lot with kind of also creating sort of installations for secret cinema and different sort of commissions, projections for theater. And at one point, I think that was when I was already pregnant, I had a sort of a project. I had some space to do something that I wanted to do myself, and I always had this idea about how to visualize breath, and just kind of made a video with this light that was moving to represent breath. And I thought, how amazing it would actually be to have a directly interactive experience. And my skill set is mostly sort of in video and in kind of this more idea space, conceptual space. And at one point, I was at an event, and there was it was sort of meeting of artists and engineers and to share ideas. And I had this idea, and I ended up sitting next to this guy and a man, talking about this idea of kind of visualizing breathing. And was like, yeah, you can maybe use these sensors, that sensors. And I was like, yeah, let's do it. So then we kind of embarked on this journey to kind of use to explore how to visualize breathing, which was, I guess, 2015. So we explored different methods of sensing, different sensors, different visualizations. And I found particularly interesting as well working with this sort of interactive art element where the, like, for example, with films, you kind of make the film and then you give it to the audience and they can have the experience that they have. I mean, of course, you want to translate a certain maybe ideas or certain visions, but there's this kind of freedom to what experience they can have with film. With the installation work, it's more like you're creating the experience, so you need to make sure that they experience the thing that you want them to kind of experience. Of course, they will take away different elements from it, but I think I did want to, and I think it's just using those elements of interaction. How do you create this particular experience to create this particular state, in a sense, and just thinking about it's maybe it's a kind of alchemy also, you know, how do you combine elements and create in the physical world for people to perceive and to be able to channel a certain experience. Maybe an element of a kind of magic in it. How do you kind of co-create magic? But then at the same time, the person themselves, the participant, they only can have that experience if they actively participate. So it's very much dependent on that relationship.
Could you tell me about Sym? So I've seen it. It looks extraordinary. So can you tell the audience about what Sym is, the device you've developed?
Well, I can tell you from that point of story how we came to develop Sym. So the idea with visualizing breathing that turned into different forms of symbiosis. So as an art installation that visualizes breathing. So the first visualization was this tunnel that you kind of, this cocoon-like sort of tunnel with a sort of mirrored surface inside that you look into, and you see the other person on the other side, and you're sending sort of light spirals towards each other through your breath. And that was the first visualization that I took to a few different festivals, including kind of Breaking Convention and like a deaf festival. And for example, I realized how it can be this amazing tool for people to communicate through their breath. So it's kind of a tool beyond, you know, inhibitions, limitations of language, of how people can just purely connect to each other through their breath. And it's something very beautiful in it. Especially, I think in that context was also the eye contact. So it was really amazing to see these beautiful experiences being created, and then also the idea was to translate it to a bigger space where people can be inside of. So then developed into the larger symbiosis dome for 8 people. So it was a dome with sensors. Then at first we had kind of belt sensors. Then we had this. I wanted to have more non-invasive sensors which you can kind of sit into. So there was these cushion sensors on the back. So as you breathe with your belly, your lower back expands, and that senses the expansion and visualizes in breathing in light. Visualize the person's breathing pattern in different color LED petals, and when they synchronize, it turns into this sort of rainbow flower. So the idea with creating that experience was how do I actually create a collective altered state with multiple people aiming to synchronize their breath and creating this collective kind of experience of collective breath, you know. it was some very beautiful experiences as well. And I took it to a few different music festivals and light festivals, and I always found how people mentioned feeling much more relaxed afterwards, or telling me like being very grateful for the experience, for offering that experience in a space where maybe they felt quite overwhelmed within the festival or quite anxious, and then they came into a space and connected to their breath and felt much better. And I could see also the benefit that experience can bring to people in terms of connecting to their breath, connecting to themselves, and connecting to others, because we're just so overstimulated and overwhelmed in life. And when I was doing it as well, it was maybe 2017, 18, and breathwork wasn't quite as popular then as well. So I think people, like when you tell them, oh, you connect to your breath, it's like, what, breath? People didn't even think about kind of breathing a lot of the time, and especially breathing through their belly. So also the position of the sensors encourages belly breathing. And as I realized through which ended up being basically the experience of holding space for people within the tent, the dome, where I created an installation to connect to their breath. And I realized that a lot of people actually breathe through their chest, which is more stress sympathetic nervous system response. And actually, it's quite difficult to get people to think about breathing through their belly. And it's really there's potential there to kind of use this technology for encouraging people to breathe through their bellies, which was basically what led me to collaborate with a gastroenterologist who was we ended up being basically in this kind of hackathon to do with the Royal College of Art and Imperial combined. There was a sort of a meeting of PhD students about kind of ideas for medtech businesses. And I was working already with a person who was on that weekender. And we were doing some research actually around the benefits of the experience of symbiosis and its effect on loneliness and kind of well-being, how it can creates a kind of sense of community and connection and improves our well-being. And she proposed kind of the idea to the gastroenterologist to combine sort of our forces to create basically, and we won the best pitch award in that weekender, and won a grant to develop the first prototype of Sym as a kind of compact version of symbiosis, which is something I kind of had in my mind to do, but then there was, some things that manifested or happened that it wasn't the most cleanest manifestation. There was a lot of complexities around that, but I think that started my journey as as kind of as an entrepreneur from artist to actually developing a product, developing actual product design, and figuring out also how to kind of be in a business space. And then that was a few years ago. Then it was then I was doing my master's, so it was a little bit on hold, and also COVID happened, so it was kind of the whole thing was a bit slow. So I was only really been working on it full time from last year. So after the initial prototype, we tested it with IBS patients. So particularly people with IBS, they experience the symptoms often triggered by anxiety. So if you can take away the anxiety and you can stimulate more parasympathetic nervous system response, you can sort of relieve the symptoms. So especially the kind of polyvagal theory, where the vagus nerve sort of connects your gut and your brain. So anything that happens disrupts your brain, your mind affects your gut, and vice versa. And it was tested to positive effect. But at the same time, I felt like, well, a lot of people actually suffer from anxiety, so it can really benefit quite a wide group of people. And so we've been developing the product. It's quite hard to actually take a physical. I mean, it's hard with art to actually create physical, to materialize them physically, especially when you talk about kind of installations and building and organizing. It's a lot of pain and tears and sweat and, and blood often goes into it. But then at the same time, when you have the experience of people having this almost enlightened experience, you feel like all that effort is is worth it after all. So with this product, the aim right now is to kind of launch it as a product and to have it more widely available for people to have in their practices, to use with clients, to use by themselves, to connect to their breath, to connect to their partners. I think there's a there's a lot of potential for to kind of bring light into people's life through connecting to their breath. Yeah.
Yeah, the audience on my YouTube channel at the end of this talk will be a video that shows Sym. So Sym is a beautiful, you have a belt that you wear, and as you breathe in front of you, you have this beautiful device with different lights. So the whole combination of breathing and experience the light has an amazing effect. So on my YouTube channel, Anthea Durand, you'll be able to see at the end of this this talk a video of Sym. So could you share, I know you have a beautiful bee breathwork practice. Could you share that for the audience for us to experience, please?
Sure. Also, I guess I would also like to share to just connecting to your belly breathing. So also to just notice also where you're breathing by doing one hand on your chest and one hand on your belly. And as you breathe in, just connect to which hand moves more and just send your breath into the belly. So as you breathe in, you expand your belly like a balloon. And as you breathe out, drawing your belly button in, just kind of slowing down your breath. It's just really good to connect to breathing from your belly, from your ground, from your kind of to ground yourself and to just be in yourself and just to calm your nervous system. And another really good practice for stimulating the parasympathetic, kind of resetting the nervous system is the bee's breath. So there's many ways people do it. Some people hold here, or they hold, they hold kind of particular places which vibrate. So the idea is actually the bees, they vibrate, and that kind of that helps their to kind of regenerate their body. But you can do it just simply by breathing out through your mouth and just tighten your lips like you would basically hum. So as you breathe in fully, you breathe in and just hum. It's like such a simple thing, but it's quite nice and quite pleasant, and you feel almost this vibration that almost the cats do when they purr.
Could you just repeat that bee sound? Because I think the internet went a bit funny. Could you just repeat the bee breath sound you did?
It's basically any sound. You can make any sound you want, but just have your mouth closed. So kind of how you would hum.
And how many should a person do that once, or how many times should they do
You can
it?
do it a few times. Yeah, you can do it maybe three times. And yeah, just to actually when we hum, we expand our breath longer. So it's nice practice just to have a longer out breath, which is also great for just rebalancing the system.
So, what are the future plans for Sim? Is there a time it's going to be launched, or what are the future plans that you've got for Sim?
Yeah, actually, we're about to launch a Kickstarter. So that is will be available to pre-order on a Kickstarter. You can also right now the plan is to launch it quite soon. Actually at the end of September, it might be pushed a little bit, but please have a look online at deepsym.com. Also, yeah, so the idea is now to launch a product by the end of the year, and we are just finalizing, obviously, all the kind of manufacturer details and how to actually physically bring it to the world in its volume. So yeah, it's quite exciting. It's available to pre-order now.
Congratulations. I know you've been working a long time on that project and it looks absolutely, I haven't actually experienced it, but I've seen lots of amazing videos and a great sense of how people experience that, and it seems very powerful. And I'm sure the whole combination of using the breath and combination of that to the light device that you invented, I'm sure is going to help many people.
Yeah, I hope so too. Also, we just submitted the proposal, hopefully be realized to develop a user interface with an app together with therapists. So to really draw on Sim's potential as a self-management tool for anxiety, to develop a kind of accompaniment app which would have sort of soothing sounds or different breathing practices, or give you kind of data on your experience. At the same time, I think it's really nice to have a product that's not reliant on an app as such, but also it's good to have this incorporation of technology and to have just more flexibility for the person as well. And possibly in the future, we also might have a tool where you can connect to another person's kind of breathing might be on the other side of the world. And I think one of my kind of my ambitious ideas would be how to get the whole world to breathe together, you know?
So yeah, what are your, hopes on how Sim can help people? What are your hopes on how it can help other people by the people using it?
Yeah. Right now, I've seen through obviously showing different events and having different people feedback. I think there's a lot of multiple uses, um, even just for certain medical conditions such as COPD or asthma. Just the idea of connecting to your breath, because it's a lot of it is like lack of control, or even people with long COVID as well. I know they suffer from kind of taking deep breaths. So it really encourages you to take a deep breath and to be in control of your breath again, and in a sense also it's an interesting actually action of like being in control and losing control, because I find when you also use the lamp, so it's a kind of a lamp that so the light moves up as you breathe in and moves down as you breathe out. So that is, yeah, but at the same time, it only really works when you are relaxed and when you're kind of engaged in a slow, deep diaphragm breathing. So when people try too hard, they kind of get a bit tense, or it's not working, and it's interesting, becomes an interesting sort of philosophy almost for life, when you kind of let go and relax into things, and it works, everything kind of flows and works much better. So it's really like a tool to externalize their internal state, really. So, and it's for them, for people to just connect to being in control of themselves and their physical and emotional states. As I said, also, breath has so much potential to stimulate our both nervous system and also different physical processes in our body, including increasing kind of hormones, positive hormones, endorphins, serotonin, and increasing blood flow, lowering heart rate, and all these things which are physiological symptoms of kind of emotional states as well, and as well as certain physical tensions. Yeah, so it really helps. There are studies on deep diaphragm breathing to help pain management. So by using this tool, and it makes it much easier as well to connect to your breath. So even people who struggle to meditate, they might, when you're told to kind of form these mindfulness techniques, when you're told to just connect to your breath, I think when people close their eyes, just your brain sort of switches on, and it's kind of this endless ruminating or thoughts that are hard to kind of take away. But when you have this external visualization, then you have this more of a focus of becoming part of this kind of glowing jellyfish, and almost like losing and connecting to yourself at the same time, in a sort of primordial sense. I think the thing that influenced me the most in terms of my connection as well to Tibetan Buddhism is focus on this kind of primordial state. What is this primordial state of being, as light? So we just become kind of light as it is in its external form.
So the fact of having the light device only works when the person is taking a breath. Is that the connection on how it works?
Yeah, so it's a direct interaction. So as you breathe in, the light responds
All
to
right.
you. So it's you controlling the lamp with your breath. There's also like a demo mode, so you can have just the lights, in the corner of the room, not necessarily use of the sensor. So right now it's a sensor in a belt or a cushion that you kind of hold on your belly, and you use it with the light. It automatically connects to the light. And so when you breathe, and you can also do it with another person. So when you breathe together, there's alternate color lights, and as you sort of synchronize and turn into these rainbows. I actually might send you another video which shows more of that. And so it can be also as a way to just connect to another person to do like a collective activity. But I know sometimes it becomes quite funny how people still get competitive, in that space, sort of, who's breathing better. The humans are funny. But the idea is there to just kind of bring you back to your yourself and this sort of primordial state of being. And in the demo mode, you also just have the light just kind of moving with optimal rate of 6 breaths per minute. So that's kind of considered to be an optimal rate for well-being. So you can also just have it in the corner of your room just to remind you to breathe more slower.
Yeah, I was going to say that is the instructions on the type of breathing that a person should do.
Yeah, so that's where the app comes in. So I think once we develop the app, which might be so the product we're developing now, that's why it took such a long time to kind of go through different iterations, because now we're doing a new iteration which would allow the accompaniment of the app. So when we release the product now, it will have these features to be able to connect to the app, where you would have sort of breathing exercises or feedback on how you're breathing, or maybe even kind of certain states that you want to achieve or where you're at, to tell you how what kind of breathing exercise is best to do.
So the machine doesn't automatically pick up a certain type of breath in order to light up the correct type of breathing, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. Right now, it's, for example, if you do kind of fire breath, like Kapalabhati breath, like like it's not going to respond so well, because it's more, the algorithm right now is focused on kind of deep slow breathing. But perhaps within, if we have an app, we can have sort of different settings where people can have also different experiences, what they need at the time. Because there are such a multitude of different breathing practices to create, more relaxed state, more focused state, more sort of stimulated state. It's you can have a maybe menu of different states, whatever you want to be, whatever you want to feel like, But I think primarily, I think my focus with light is just to get actually people to breathe, to just to chill out and kind of just connect to their breath, to breathe, because also I think a lot of the popular breathwork practices are very stimulating, and we already live in a very stimulated world, and I feel we need to also bring back this kind of quiet and being more still and more calm kind of environment, compared to, say, like Wim Hof breathing, which is more sort of stimulating and activating the kind of sympathetic response. And this is just an experience to really, to just connect and to create a space for yourself, to create space for this. So it's an experience, really. It's about how do you create also, obviously, the fact that it came from an art installation, which is the art installation is the focus of the creating that experience. It's about creating an experience, a certain experience where people feel a particular way through the interaction of different elements. So it's not like any other kind of products or devices out there, which are more focused on kind of the tech aspect, or just using it as a tool, like or it's just a thing that you kind of put, or it vibrates, or it's an app that you do this. So it's also this kind of aesthetic experience is a really big part of it. I think that's and that's actually part of my research practice, which I did my master's. I did cognitive studies, and my dissertation was about non-duality in aesthetic experiences. So how can we create this kind of non-dual states, or of almost it's a disconnecting from yourself in a sense, and then also like connecting to the source, almost, I guess you can say, through externalizing and focusing on this aesthetic experience of seeing the light.
Yeah, and I was thinking
usually comment
people will be working by themselves with it. It seems right that they would just go with the natural way of, breathing with the lights, because that's, I suppose, any deeper processes would be. I suppose that's what you're saying about the app. It'd be teaching them that. Yeah, but I think just that kind of, as you said, that kind of standard breath work with the light object seems a great way for people to be able to do that by themselves in a safe way and naturally and easily, and to get that desired results of relaxation or help with healing particular things, as you said, with any health conditions as well. So thank you, Kira. So how can people contact you? How can the audience contact you if they want to know more about your Sym or your work?
Yeah, you can send a message on the website. There's a contact form. Subscribe to the newsletter. Follow on Instagram at deep.sym. And the website is www.deepsym.com.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
It's been great, and I love the work you're doing, and good luck when you launch it later on this year.
Thank you. Please support the Kickstarter as well.
Thank you.
We live in a busy, disconnected world, constantly faced with uncertainty and increasing pressures. It can be incredibly overwhelming. 1 in 3 people experience anxiety. Mental health problems are one of the largest causes of disability in the UK, costing estimated 105 billion to the economy. Introducing Sym, an interactive light for mindful relaxation. Simply taking a deep breath can help to reset the nervous system, instantly calming the mind. The light directly responds to your breathing, which is picked up by the custom sensor in a cushion or belt. As you breathe in, the light responds. Sym encourages you to breathe through the belly using the diaphragm, which has been proven to immediately activate the body's relaxation response, the parasympathetic, improving both mental and physical health. It doesn't rely on an app to work, and you can use it with multiple people at once. When breathing in sync, the color of the light changes to rainbows for an increased sense of joy, triggering dopamine and serotonin release. Sym has a therapeutic effect and can be used by practitioners to make it more easy and rewarding for their clients to practice diaphragmatic breathing. Sym can be used at home, in a practice, with friends, an event, transforming any space into an immersive and relaxing experience. Our vision is to share the deep Sym experience globally. Become part of our journey and help us to bring light to the world.